that we adjourn.
We adjourn. And now we'll convene our work session for December 3rd. Good morning. First agenda item. Suzanne.
Good morning.
Morning.
In 1988, Warren County had 109,000 people in the population. Deerfield Town Center was farmland, and Lebanon still had a skating rink. And that was the year that Betty Davis walked into the very first Warren County Solid Waste Management District Policy Committee meeting. I'm joined today with a few other policy committee members. Chris Crouch and Molly Conley are here, and Martin Russell is also on our board. And we are here today to recognize Betty Davis for her leadership and her longevity on the board. The Solid Waste Committee, actually, Betty, can you come on up with me?
Sure.
Thank you. The Solid Waste Policy Committee is formed because it's required by the Ohio Revised Code, and they are charged with the task of developing and ratifying our plan. So Betty Davis has been on this board since 1988. For 36 years, she has served faithfully. And she has written the original plan and then 5 more plans after that. And believe me, that is not a fun task. And she has been serving with us for all of those years. Our policy committee is very fortunate in that we have a good committee. Everybody feels very free to offer suggestions, to brainstorm, and Betty has been there every step along the way, offering guidance. She understands our goals, I think, more than anybody. She's got the history there and the experience, and she understands our goals about recycling and sustainability, and her input has been invaluable to all of us. She's helped build our program and all of the services that we offer to our residents. And she is very concerned with not just our residents, but also our businesses. She's been, over the years, very outspoken in making sure that we have the lowest generation fee in the state of Ohio to keep the fees down. And she's very concerned about fiscal responsibility. And because of her leadership and her guidance, we have met our goals. And Betty, you have been our rock. You've been our rock. You've been our historian. You've been our guide, our voice of reason, and we all appreciate all that you've done for Warren County, and I especially am very appreciative to everything that she has done. And I believe the county commissioners have a proclamation for you.
We do. We want to recognize and honor Betty Davis for her service in the Warren County Solid Waste Management District Policy Committee. Yeah, for 38 years. Thank you. We know you've been very involved in the community, and we certainly appreciate this. This is oftentimes an overlooked part of our community until it's not working. And then everybody knows about it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the water and sewer system. You know, no one thinks about it until you do, and it's generally not a good thing. So thank you for this very important part of our community. And the recycling program, I know, has just been a huge success and a model for the state.
Amazing. I think we have the best in the state.
Yes, agreed.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yes, we've got this for you.
Could we take a picture?
Sure.
Okay.
Betty, how are you? Long time no see.
Yeah.
Shannon.
How are you?
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your service. Thank you. You're welcome to address us.
Yeah, you want to talk about it?
Are you sure? Do you want?
You earned it, 38 years. Go ahead.
Thank you. Then I'll play. Now, on to it.
Saul, I've got another meeting.
We're not insulted. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Very good. Next, we have a work session with Susan, talking about our 2025 budget.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm in front of you today seeking approval of the 2025 budget, which certifies that there are funds sufficient for planned expenditures. I just want to kind of give you a quick overview of what's been going on this year in the 2024 budget. As far as expenses, as of the end of October, we spent about 74% of what was appropriated in PO carryovers. We're projecting to spend about $93.2 million this year. As far as revenue, as of today, through October and November, is about $102 million, which is 109% of what we had anticipated. We are expecting to probably collect a little over $110 million by the end of the year. We're collecting more than anticipated and spending less than appropriated. As far as real estate collection this year, we have collected $25.7 million. Our investment income year-to-date is about $10.4 million. Sales tax revenue year-to-date is about $51 million, and we're projecting about $55.9 million. It's about 2.5% higher than last year. And building permit revenue year-to-date is about $2.3 million. Just to give some highlights of the 2025 budget general fund appropriation, the request is going to be about $93.8 million, which is about 0.5% over the actual spend that's projected for 2024. The anticipated revenue is about $102 million, and that's a conservative number, just based on what we're anticipating, but most likely it'll be higher than that. The general fund 2025 budget request supports about 52% public safety, 47.5% operational expenses, and about 0.5% of social service. The non-general fund is also before you, and their anticipated revenue supports their appropriation requests. In all, the total budget with general funds and non-general funds is about $353 million this year for 2025. If there are any questions?
Y'all have done just a ton of work this fall. I sure do appreciate it. And 0.55% above 2024 actuals, I think is pretty strong and consistent with our view of keep doing those things which we're required to do.
Right.
And doing it as cost effectively and efficiently as possible on behalf of taxpayers. And of course, our staff is a big part of bringing that goal to reality. So I really appreciate all the work that you and Martin and all of the department heads have put into the creation of this budget.
Thank you.
I echo Commissioner Jones's sentiments. I think this is my 20th budget now, and I've certainly seen it grow over the years, but the county has grown in a correlated manner. It's probably the most important thing we do is keeping our fiscal house in order, and people often ask, well, what is it, that makes Warren County different, that you guys are in such great financial shape? And I always say it's not one thing that we do, it's everything that we do. And staff, my fellow commissioners, and then even especially the other elected officials that have a similar mindset of it's not our money, it's the taxpayers' money, I think goes right in line. And with my least favorite topic, but I think it's important to point it out, especially in this cycle, that to be up less than 1% over what we actually spent this past year, and even just over 4% increase, that's in the context of inflation that was thrown upon us out of Washington, D.C., is up 22% in the last 4 years. So for us, even in an inflationary environment where wage pressure is affecting us as an employer of 1,000 people, just like it is every other employer in the nation, to be up on this small of a percentage is very heartening for us. So we appreciate it, and you're asking us to.
I have two resolutions here. The first one is approving the 2025 annual appropriations.
So moved.
And yes?
And the second resolution is establishing budget stabilization account from the unencumbered general fund cash balance.
Yeah, this is the one that Tiff told me she would come after me if we ever touched. This is the 12 million annually that we roll into the rainy day fund. So we wanted to make sure we got that booked, so I don't have Tiff chasing me around for ever and ever and ever, so.
So moved.
And yes.
And that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you.
Congratulations on your first budget,
Oh,
Susan.
thank you, the departments are wonderful.
And I just want to echo from staff perspective, is that's one thing that Susan and Crystal, and obviously a lot of the staff are elected, but Susan and them have worked really hard, and they've asked for me, and I've been trying to guide them as best as possible, but just really want to shout out to them for really putting a lot of effort into that. So
Thank you.
it's very much appreciated on my end.
Very good. We've got a public hearing to consider a request from the Myers Cooper Company to depart from the original thoroughfare plan relative to Hopkinsville 2021 Access Management Plan in Hamilton Township. Kurt or Dave?
Good morning, Commissioners. Appreciate, yes, we got it on the screen here. This is the Fifth Third parcel in Hamilton Township. And Myers White Cooper is looking at developing the parcel. And we've got, the thoroughfare plan is, basically there's a road that goes across the thoroughfare plan right there. And I'll point it out here. As we walk up to the screen, this area right through here, this is the property, the Fifth Third property that's being contemplated for development by Myers White Cooper, and this is a thoroughfare plan road that's called Grandin Road Extension from 22 and 3. This is 22 and 3, and this is State Route 48. Overall, the thoroughfare plan is, the Hoptown plan is a subset of the thoroughfare plan, which is shown on the left side of your screen there. And good news is there's a lot happening down in Hamilton Township, and to the credit of Hamilton Township trustees, Administrator Wright, and the trustees down there, as well as Myers Cooper themselves, have developed the parcel just to the north of this blue area. A nice strip center there that's complete, and right next to the Shooters, which is just south of the Kroger. Should mention the Kroger store plans to open next week, right there off of Town Center Boulevard. Town Center Boulevard right in here was built through the township TIF, and Kroger is situated right here. And this road has been built to the west of 48. This road is planned to be built as some development goes in here. The Hamilton Township Point apartment development, high-end apartments, as well as outlots here in front of Kroger. I mentioned the Myers Cooper property right in here. So there's a lot happening. This Hoptown plan was originated back in the early 2000s, so it's been about 20 years. The thoroughfare plan originated in 1996. We added the Hoptown plan to the thoroughfare plan in the early 2000s. And as we look at this, it's something that we feel that, you know, the spirit of the thoroughfare plan should be maintained. You know, we had come before you a couple of years ago, I believe it was, you know, for the Kroger store, the Grandin extension right here, the northern part where the Kroger store is situated now. We actually came before the commission and asked for you to deviate from that plan because we had looked at the traffic study and felt like there was gonna be too much traffic at that intersection with Grandin and State Route 48. So this is one where the developer, as they develop their property, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but and the township and the developer will both speak, but you know, they want to asking you guys to deviate from the plan. something needs to happen there. You know, now it shows a public road. We're open to ideas. We've discussed some ideas with the developer. We've looked at, this is just a rough sketch, but realigning the roadway, if you will, over to the boundary line to give, you know, so that they can develop their site. And they've said, you know, that doesn't work for them. Likewise, we've talked to the township in anticipation of this hearing. About a month ago, we met with Administrator Wright and Trustee Mark Sousa, and Dave and I did, and had a brainstorming session. We came up with another idea, just the idea of maybe if it's not a public road, maybe it could be maintaining the spirit of the thoroughfare plan by having cross-access easements from this is a car lot that may develop in the future, may not, but have a cross-access easement here. And instead of having a public road that's 42 feet wide and right-of-way, maybe it could just be, you know, the same thing could be accomplished with a private road, if you will, that doesn't have a wide thoroughfare right-of-way. And then maybe the public road could come down from Town Center Boulevard where Kroger is to this area or this area and be cul-de-sac, but we would still have the benefit of connection. And the whole idea is to have connection from the site to Town Center Boulevard. And
their proposal doesn't do that?
correct. And and I think and they can certainly speak to that. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I believe that, you know, it's, you know, contrary to what they want to do on their site. And, you know, so we had brainstormed this idea with the township, and it's our understanding the township reached out to the developer and they weren't interested in, you know, doing anything like this, but they certainly can speak to that. But I think, you know, we feel like this is something that, you know, we need to have, or at least have options. It's not gonna be built tomorrow as far as the connection, you know, all the way up to Town Center Boulevard. But, you know, at some point when this develops, and as this is a high intense development, as it develops, there may be a need, and we feel there will be a need, to have good access to Town Center Boulevard so you can get to a traffic signal here. And someday this road will extend over to 22 and 3. That's the overall plan. So I think to deviate and not have anything, you know, built or to accommodate what we're trying to accomplish with the plan, then our options are gone. And that's why we feel strongly about, you know, whether it's the public road, which we understand that doesn't bode well for them, but okay, can we come up with a, you know, look at the private option of still having the cross-access easements, because that's what the thoroughfare plan shows. You know, as we look at this area here, I mean, today we're contemplating just here on their property in the blue, but, you know, it does, the thoroughfare plan shows cross-access easements here, cross-access easement here, which is their property where they've developed the strip center, as well as cross-access easements from the church property. And there again, it's a church. It may never develop, but they, you know, currently, there's a lot of traffic that comes in off of 22 and 3. The idea someday of having the public road come down to here gives them another option to get out, a safer option. The whole idea of this Hoptown plan, you know, when we developed that with, you know, it wasn't something that we just came up with. We looked at this with ODOT, and, you know, the lots at the time, the parcels, if you will, not really lots, were, you know, bowling alley parcels, long parcels with not much frontage, and the whole idea was, hey, if we come up with this, it's almost like an access management plan, you know, to better mitigate the traffic and try to keep anything we can, internal without using, you know, 48 and 22 and 3. And I want to give Dave an opportunity. Is there anything, Dave's got maybe some more detail to go over, just a couple other points. Thank you, Commissioner, appreciate it.
Good morning. Just going to accent a couple of points that Kurt has made. And first I'll mention too that we have a draft traffic impact study that is still being evaluated by ODOT. And ODOT has the bulk of the review responsibility here, obviously. State Route 48, 22, and 3, that's going to be their jurisdiction. Notably, when we, at least the draft that's being considered, the traffic impact study suggested pretty significant delays at these two access points, State Route 48, and I'm talking minutes, of delay at certain times. If you're, trying to turn left, this would be one access, and quite a bit of queuing, was anticipated to occur, and, same with 22 and 3. The developer does have, it's not anything we reviewed, but they have worked out a cross-access easement with shooters, so they would have access through the shooter's site across the frontage, down to Town Center Boulevard and then out to the light. And the traffic impact study suggested, maybe even 120 vehicles or so in an hour, during peak times might, rather than access this point, run across the front of the shooters. That kind of thing's kind of hard to estimate. But the thought here again is just to provide options. If this ends up being unworkable, at these two access points, at least maintaining the option of access to Town Center Boulevard, access to this light, and eventually access to, eventually Town Center Boulevard, as Kurt mentions, constructed up to this point approximately with the Kroger development, access to 22 and 3 here. Maybe this might be a roundabout at some point, this is West Road, or a traffic signal here might be, far enough east. So they'd have good connection to Town Center Boulevard, better, we think, with the backdoor approach. And, that would still be at least on the
Dave,
books.
I'm not positive, where's the developer where are they saying they want to go out right now?
Yeah, thank you. All right. This is their site, 22 and 3, State Route 48. This is the strip center that's currently under construction, just about completed. Maybe it's complete. I know it's not open for business just yet.
And the lower left corner is the actual intersection of 48 and 22?
Yes, sir. Yeah, correct. So they have a right-in, right-out here on 22 and 3, a right-in, right-out on 48. This is still being reviewed.
Are we okay with those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, ODOT is so far, and I guess maybe I'm speaking too soon. This would require a variance through the state, so that would still be under review. So again, ODOT has a responsibility really to okay these access points. And also this, this access point, that's still under review with the traffic impact study. So to Kurt's point, we're keeping this Hoptown Road on the books provides, some option for presumably the township, maybe, or developer, future development, to, have a meaningful backdoor to Town Center Boulevard, to the traffic signal, and to West Road, when that's constructed.
So is there no scenario to do that, that is acceptable to the developer?
One concern they have, and this is
I mean, I know they're here, they can speak for themselves,
Yeah.
but obviously you all have been,
the trouble that we have is we can't communicate, and this is a problem for them too, when they consider this. We can't communicate when or if this road's built, you know, so we talk about
yeah, but that's the
options,
way
we talk
planning
about-
works, right?
Yeah.
You know, we can just look at lots of areas that have been overdeveloped, that haven't had the proper infrastructure in place to feed traffic around. And so we were trying, the purpose of the thoroughfare plan is to prevent those sorts of bottlenecks from happening when future development happens. But I guess at the end of the day, I see this option that you all sort of proffered up, they don't like it, okay. What I'm trying to get to is there something that allows us to maintain the connectivity, as you call the spirit of the thoroughfare plan, which I think is a prudent goal, but allows them to develop the property with their vision or tenants or whatever in mind to get us where we want to go. Like, I just want to know, is there a place forward here?
Well, it could be. I mean, so this scenario that we've suggested, honestly, we don't know if this works yet or not. We would need for the developer's engineer to help us, you know, they have elevations for shooters, for this Myers-Cooper development, you know, for their proposed site here. They can help us to determine whether or not this cross-connectivity can work just from a grading constructability standpoint. Looks like it's possible. I mean, standing here and taking a look at it, but we would need some information, you know, from them. And the benefit.
So this option hasn't really been explored.
Correct. Yeah, this is as far as it's gotten.
And are we talking about where the purple line is, you know, are we talking about that road actually being constructed now or no?
Well, I mean, that's something we'd have to work out, but I would say no. You know, at least there be, the developer, and again, they'll have an opportunity to speak, but they have a concern with the cross access. If, you know, more traffic coming into their site, if there's not meaningful cross access for them, that works both ways. If you don't have meaningful cross access going into their site, they don't have it coming out to the light. And that's really, again, what we're trying to maintain, and hopefully we can accomplish with something like this. Now, it takes coordination with the car lot, but what this could do is if there's a back door to this Myers-Cooper, now if you've got this congestion here, and they maybe can't make their way in front of the shooters, they can, you know, make their way through this site, you know.
So I'm basically hearing that there's a request for us to deviate from the plan, but there's no solution that satisfies the spirit of the plan.
Yeah, we would be glad to deviate, and we've, you know, Kurt and I, and we've met again with the township and the developer, we would be glad to deviate from the plan, but the key is the meaningful cross-access, you know, to be able to.
Which seems reasonable to me. I mean, that seems like a reasonable objective. I guess I'm trying to figure out is.
Yeah, and so the Hoptown Road, we've been reluctant to change the plan because at least that gives us the tool to work on this cross-access.
Right, I'm reluctant to allow a deviation from the plan until there's a solution. If I allow a deviation from the plan, then there's no pressure to come up with a solution that satisfies both parties. And I'm interested in a solution that satisfies both parties. And then when both parties agree to that solution, I'm more likely to deviate from the plan that has been in the public domain since 2020, you tell me. So it doesn't sound like those conversations have really happened in a robust way between the county and the developer.
You know, we may conclude that this doesn't work for some reason, but we don't have enough information. I think it might, but.
I would just say from a staff perspective, I mean, I've been in at least 3, if not 4 meetings with the developers and the engineer's office, and there have been items that have been proffered back and forth. And at the last meeting that actually was held in this room, I wasn't a part of this conversation, but the meeting that was held in this room, at the end of that, it was really kind of requested, when could we get on the calendar to get in front of the commissioners? So I've been at least to 3 or 4 meetings trying to figure out an alternative, and at this stage, there isn't something that seems to be where there's an alignment, no pun intended.
But is that because all things have been exhausted? I mean, is there just not a solution? Or, I mean,
Yeah, if we're asking.
this is an unusual thing. I'm very much used to you all coming before us, parties agree to a deviation from a plan that has been publicly set. We're being asked to approve a deviation without that. And so I'm kind of, you know,
And to go against our engineer's office.
yeah, and so I'm neither fish nor fowl with respect to what the solution is, but I'm sort of flummoxed based on how we typically like to operate, is all the parties come here and say, commissioners, we'd like for you to deviate from your plan in this way, and we're all in agreement. To me, it seems like there's no agreement, there's not even necessarily robust conversation about how to get to an agreement, though have been conversations.
Right, and I would say is I did articulate that point that you preferred historically for the engineer and the developer to be on the same page. And at the last meeting that I was a part of, post that meeting, the developer asked to be put onto the calendar, so that was articulated.
If I could,
And we'll hear from the developer too, like,
Yeah.
I wanna hear your point of view for sure. I'm struggling to find out what you're coming here and asking us to do, and you're not coming here and asking us to deviate.
Correct.
You're asking us to maintain the
Maintain.
thoroughfare plan, or an alternative that maintains what you refer to as the spirit of the thoroughfare plan. And
Correct.
I'm inclined to, you know, to honor that,
right.
so long as, you know, there's some disputes where there is no solution, you just have to pick a pathway, and I'm just not confident we're at that point yet.
No, appreciate that. I mean, after we had the meetings that Martin's talking about, and it was good dialogue back and forth, you know, between the developer and between the township and our office. And then once it was put on the agenda, the commissioner's agenda, because it's a public hearing, Neil and Dave and I talked, and we said, you know, let's see if we can figure out a solution. So our first step was to meet with the township, and like I mentioned, Jeff Wright, administrator, and Mark Sousa, township trustee, we had a good meeting with them, talking about this, you know, hey, you know, get the idea that, okay, let's see if we can figure something out with deviation. And that's when we came up with this idea with, you know, private streets instead of, that aren't as wide, don't take as much right away, maybe, you know, just cross-access easements. And really, it was Dave's idea. It's an outstanding idea, and it's our understanding that the township reached out to them saying, hey, this, you know, and like today's point, we would need their engineer to take a look at it to make sure it works, you know, elevation-wise, grade-wise, and I think they just felt like, well, let's just go forward with the meeting. And they're, again, don't want to speak for them. They're a great developer. We've enjoyed working with them on this other development that they put in there south of Shooters. And as we widened 48, we had to work with them to get right away from them, to buy right away from them. So bottom line is, there's been good dialogue, but it just kind of stopped at that point.
Okay, we get it from your
Can I
standpoint.
ask a question before they sit down?
Yes.
Can you tell us what development this is? I'm confused. Is this part of the same development as Kroger? Is this a separate development?
Separate development.
And what area does this encompass?
Yeah, it is the, yes, good, David.
All of the blue?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
And
these two parcels.
the letter I'm seeing relates to Fifth Third. Where's the lot, Fifth Third?
It's these
The
two
whole,
parcels.
the whole blue area.
The whole blue
Yes,
area?
yes, sir.
Okay. And that's the entire development, the whole blue area, and Fifth Third's acquiring all of that.
Right.
Thank
Guess
you.
we should hear from the developer now. unless, does the township want to speak first?
Mr. Wright would like to speak, if that's okay.
Yeah, I was definitely going to call on you, but yeah, it was definitely, if you want to come up first.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thanks for the commissioner's time this morning, and I want to just let you know how full of guidance and support Mr. Russell's been through this. My entire year plus I've been at the township, I've been in conversations with this, so I just want the commissioners to know this hasn't been discussed in a vacuum in any way, and always appreciative of the servant leadership that Kurt and Dave always show to us and property owners. So
That's nice.
I want that on the record. Really enjoy that relationship. If I was in your seats, I would want to have some more context to this. So this vacant 7-acre site at the northeast corner of 48 and 22 is the most prime developable property in all of Hamilton Township. I'm sure you know we are the true definition of a bedroom community, 34,000 plus residents now. We have a lot of market loss. And because we're on the border of Claremont and in the city of Loveland with Hamilton County, some of that market loss, when our residents go for their medical appointments, their restaurants, their retail, I heard Ms. Water talk about sales tax earlier. That market loss, because where we are situated, it's sometimes lost to Hamilton and Claremont counties. Some more context for this is property's already zoned. Fifth Third purchased this property 20 plus years ago, maybe around the same time that the thoroughfare plan was being discussed. All three trustees, of course, are here this morning. I don't believe that's happened in 7 or so years, so that tells you the gravitas and moment, the importance of this discussion. I think Trustee Sousa might talk to a fact that there's not been a recording, there's not been a deeded record on parcel by parcel of this plan. I'm a city planner by training and background. I've been a part of a lot of good comp and thoroughfare and land use plans. I had another property owner further east of Fifth Third reach out to us at the township a month ago saying he's in process of trying to sell his commercial property. He just learned a month or so ago of the thoroughfare plan. It wasn't reflected. So each time a property owner has purchased this, the thoroughfare plan, while it is a good guidance and it has a lot of merit when we have these kind of conversations, unlike a utility easement, it's not been recorded on that deed. So there have been some instances, just to give you some background, some of the affected property owners, they can call us an instant, know what the property zone, etc. But there's been some fuzziness of awareness of the thoroughfare plan. So it's a legal document that your predecessors adopted many years ago, but just understand contextually, that's a little bit of a surprise to some owners. It's true when Dave mentioned earlier that there's preserving the thoroughfare plan. I think I'm paraphrasing. He said it would preserve an option for that future public roadway. That's a fact. But I spoke last week with Mr. Roush, one of the two owners of the used car lot. The car lot they referenced immediately to the east of this site, that's a tenant. So there's a gentleman that rents that building for used car and small auto repair. That tenant is in the process, he has agreed upon purchase price with the owners. So the tenant, they have a price, he's working through his financing. That relevancy means if that tenant goes through with his purchase, that property use is not going to be changing for a long time. The motivation of the tenant to buy the property is for him to continue his business. So it's unlikely that in several years that property is going to change like this for their property's changing. So while the thoroughfare plan, I agree that it's an option for a public roadway, a township street to go through the property, it's not likely given the fact that that property is about to change hands in the next several weeks. So there's no motivation for that. I used to chair a TID in another adjacent county. I'm sure that Mr. Russell and your legal counsel are familiar. Oftentimes, when there's a hard, fast thoroughfare plan or there is a distinctive line on a map that there shall be a future public roadway, oftentimes a TID or the state or a county engineer's office, they will record that easement, and then they have to go through a requirement of assessing the value of the 45 or the 60 feet wide right-of-way they're going to need They will purchase that right away. Financing by the public entities are put in place, and then that public roadway is constructed, turned over then to the township or county, and we operate that roadway. That's not the case here. So I don't know if the representative from Fifth Third, the property owner, is here this morning, but in my I've had 2 conversations with Fifth Third as the owner. They are very surprised that they would have to, a large amount of the developable part of their property would become a public roadway for which they would not be compensated. That's not typical. So that's more, again, just more context that I'm sure that you want to be aware of. Before I turn over to a couple of my elected officials, I do want to further amplify what Commissioner Young and Commissioner Jones asked about spirit of the plan, what would be done to accommodate cross-access easement, some connectivity. I mentioned I'm a recovering city planner. That's important to me too. I'm going to be getting the calls. If this property develops and a year or 2 from now there's failure, I'm going to be the first person that a disgruntled motorist starts with. There is something that will be done to keep with the spirit. I don't know if it was fully amplified, but the significance of Myers White Cooper being the developer, if they were to close on this and develop it for retail, they are developing right now. You saw that we had a ribbon cutting recently. Immediately north, adjacent to this site, Myers White Cooper owns, and they have constructed a 20,000 square foot retail center. They would grant themselves, as a budding property owner, cross-access easement, full vehicular movement from the subject site through their strip center. That's just south of Shooters. It adjoins Shooters. Shooters has previously granted a full cross-access easement to Myers White Cooper. So in the spirit of the connectivity, if this retail center is done, 4 or 5 retail buildings, medical office, et cetera, are put here, a visitor to the subject site would have recorded full access to the existing new strip center Myers White Cooper has built, and to Shooters, which has access to the public town center boulevard. So if a motorist or resident of Warren County were to visit this site and they wanted to then eat at Shooters and then shop at Kroger, they could do so without re-entering the public roadway. So I just wanted to amplify that, make sure that's a fact that you have. Happy to, when this is done, if the township can answer any questions. I think there might be some more statements, but we just want to kind of bridge. We are the ombudsman between respecting what the county would like to see, because you represent our residents, but this is a chance for 7 acres of property that's been zoned. It's been on the vine. It's fully ripe. We appreciate that the 48 and 22 improvements were just completed. That was a great partnership between ODOT, Warren County, and Hampton Township. So this is prime. The land is now ready to be developed. And I'll close with, so often when we hear presentations from the developer, one of their first questions is, what are you going to do to incentivize this? What kind of tax dollars are you going to bring to the table, county or township? They're not asking us to do that.
We don't do that very often.
Actually, that's one of the reasons why you have a good fund balance. They're not asking that of us. All they are asking is for us to work logically with them so that they can put their development, they'll make a private investment in Warren County, and I think it's going to be a good one because there still will be that spirit of the intent.
So are you officially okay with the developer's plan as presented?
We are. It meets our zoning and land use plans. So it's an appropriate land use and density at that location. Again, the uniqueness of them having cross-access easements to other properties would fulfill that spirit to connect town center to US 22. And if not Myers White Cooper, because of that fact, I don't know that we'll be back here in a year or 2, I would predict, with Fifth Third and hopefully another developer. You probably know this, Fifth Third cannot develop the property themselves. Banks are prohibited through some federal statute to doing that. So we can't just say, hey, Fifth Third, you bought this property 20 years ago. Thanks for waiting. What are you going to do to assist? The property's grown in value because of the improvements and adjacent uses. So yes, sir. It's totally appropriate within the zoning and land use and the connectivity factor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Trustees?
Good morning, Commissioners, and thank you this morning for having this hearing. Actually, my notes are all jumbled, but I'll just keep my comments brief. I just wanted to say that.
Just state your name for the
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Daryl Cordray, Hamilton Township Trustee. So I just wanted to just remind the board, the commissioners, that we did as a board pass a resolution earlier this year in support of this thoroughfare revision. We've, as you well know, Hamilton Township has grown since Mr. Rossi and I have taken office. I mean, almost 10,000 residents since 2018. In 2018, 2019, the township trustees passed tax levies for our roads, our fire and police, with the goal in mind of not passing and not asking the residents for another levy until at least 2028, 2029. And thankfully, we're well on that track. But a development like this, that is a major piece of our development plan here in the township, is that Fifth Third Corner property. And our hope and our belief is we develop that corner along with the Kroger development and everything else that's gone on, that we will not only hit that target, but hopefully exceed that target, even though we have seen record growth, as you well know, within the county. We've been the fastest, if not one of the fastest growing township cities in this county over the last 10 years. So we're all in full support of this thoroughfare plan and these changes as proposed. That's all.
First, related, I think makes this even more likely, I'm sorry, yeah, Mark Sousa, Hamilton Township Trustee. Should know that, right? Not used to being on this side. I want to say thanks for the investment in, this happened planning years ago, but for the 48 widening. The difference that's made in our community, and even the likelihood of development of this and the traffic is significant. I think even a little more context to Mr. Wright's point about this intersection and how prime this is. This is our marquee intersection in the township. This is a good plan. They're a good developer. That intersection currently has 2 pharmacies and a gas station convenience store. So we're also motivated to see this happen because of the plan that it is in kind of completing, but you know, we've had a lot of interest from other gas station developers for this corner. And the last thing we want to see is it be pharmacies and gas stations. The connectivity that we talk about, their access at their existing strip center is at the south end of that parcel. So that full access onto 48 from their other development is literally at the border of these 2 parcels and developments. So they'd have the right in, right out on 22, 48, but then a full dedicated access on 48. I think, in my opinion, we give too much precedence in this conversation to the access to the car lot. As Jeff stated, we don't see that changing anywhere in the near future. And I don't know that it's of a size that if somebody wanted to develop it 10, 20 years down the road for another use, that it would really attract the type of development that would want the cross access into this. So people in this development would be able to get back out to 48, get to 22 and 3. I see the idea of having its access in a road going up the town center into Kroger, but I can accomplish that if I'm a patron there of one of these businesses by simply going to the access on 48 and heading up 48 and turning on town center or Grandin and into the Kroger. That's all I have. Thank you for your time today.
Joe Rossi, Hamilton Township Trustee. I'm not going to repeat what both of my colleagues just said, but I do agree that, as Daryl said and Mark said both, this is the cornerstone of Hamilton Township. In 2017, when I first met Daryl Cordray, we had coffee at Winans. And I remember pointing out to him the traffic heading west on 22. All of those people going to other communities to shop, to eat, to taking all this money out of Hamilton Township, as well as Warren County. I was one of them. There was nowhere else to go. So now we're on the cusp of an incredible amount of development. Will we ever be like a Coleraine Township? No. We don't have that much developable land, but we have enough. And we're on the cusp, and this is the cornerstone. So as far as Mark had stated, we feel that the access is adequate for the traffic that it carries right now. And as Jeff Wright had mentioned, the thoroughfare, the through connectivity, we feel is accommodating for this development. So that's all I have.
It's I don't know. Bruce, it almost brings a tear to my eye that Hamilton Township's here arguing for a commercial development. This is so heartening for me.
To that point, I'll make another related comment. I got started in being an elected official. I was the face of bond and operating levy campaigns for Little Miami Schools, and I'm still the chair of their advisory council. You're talking about a school district that has one of the worst ratios in the state for residential to commercial development. And so here we have a commercial development, no tax ask, you know, if we deviate to this plan, it's good for every.
I don't know how many years when I first took office, your administrator said something about a bedroom community. How many times did I say that, Bruce? I mean, it was my constant theme of honestly arguing with Hamilton Township, stop it, stop the small lots, stop, you're killing yourselves, and they wouldn't listen, and all of a sudden you went into fiscal emergency and all the stuff, and you couldn't be just a bedroom community. We've spent years with our economic development folks. How can we get more businesses to Hamilton Township, especially to Little Miami and King school districts, that we've got to diversify them from just that. So praise the Lord, you guys are here arguing on behalf of a commercial development. We appreciate that and agree with it, that this is, and congratulations on, yeah, you have been at many times Ohio's fastest growing township. So, which is a good thing, and then sometimes it's a bad thing too. But yeah, we've clearly tried to think ahead from an infrastructure standpoint and tried to plan for some of this where it's within our purview to try to plan for it. But, and that's why I think Commissioner Jones and I are very, in most cases, leery of deviating from one of those thoroughfare plans of saying, hey, we know this is coming. You know, you're holding up a catcher's mitt, something's gonna hit it. You know, you guys are at ground zero of this is going to develop. What do we want it to look like? How do we anticipate it's not just, oh, for the next few years, there's gonna be this here, hey, for the next 20 or 25 years, there's gonna be blank number of cars there, and trying to plan for that, which I think is what our engineer's office is trying to do. But it does carry a tremendous amount of weight that you are the direct elected officials for your township. You guys control your own zoning. You guys are home ruled. You decide these things. And so it does carry a lot of weight when you unanimously stand up and say, we want blank, whatever that is. Doesn't mean we always agree with you, but that carries, at least from my opinion, a lot of weight in these decisions.
And thank you, Commissioner Young. And I think just one other thing I'd like to add is, obviously when they did this thoroughfare plan originally in the late 90s and early 2000s, I mean, they did an outstanding job with it, and they just couldn't possibly, I don't think anybody anticipated the amount of growth that Hamilton Township saw from 2010 on. And I think that's where, you know, some adjustments and consideration needs to be made of, okay, is that still really the best footprint for what has happened in Hamilton Township over the last 10 to 15 years as far as the population growth?
We are and will continue to keep saying no to those high-density residential subdivisions. And the thing I think we have to give a lot of consideration to in this request, they're the neighboring property owner and they're given access. If we can't make this work with these guys, and the next party that comes along, that won't happen. We'll be right back here with fewer options. A new developer will have the same issue with dedicating a certain amount of the acreage to development, and you know, there not being any value in it. So all those challenges that we have, I think Shannon hit you when you're like, how much have you guys talked about this? What options have you looked at? It's been considerable. There's just not a scenario that satisfies, to your point, where the engineers come in here and say, hey, yeah, we're okay with this, the developer's on board. We can't quite get there, but we feel that all the access, the improvements to 48 that have happened, it'll serve our community well.
And I'm sure you appreciate, though, when you have another elected official or another department, that it is just very unusual for them to come in here and not be able to find a solution that satisfies both parties. You can appreciate my hesitation in wanting to offer a variance in the absence of that, because I firmly believe that where there is a will, there is a way. And sometimes there isn't that way forward, and that then is incumbent upon us to make a decision. But this is just very unusual to not, even in times where my experience has been over the last 8 years anyway, even when the engineer's office has not agreed with it, they have proffered up a solution that is, you know, workable from their standpoint, even if they're not in agreement. And so it just feels to me, and I'm with Dave, I really appreciate the fact that you all are here and your perspective on it, you know, does carry a lot of weight, but so does the engineer's office, and I'm a little taken back that there isn't more of a kind of a solution for it. They're usually the ones that say to us, there isn't a solution for it, you guys just have to decide, are you here or you're here, and that's not what I'm hearing. So I appreciate you all being here.
Thank you.
Developer?
Everything's been said. I'm Randy Cooper with the Myers-White Cooper Company. How do we make that work?
Here you go. You got it.
Okay. And then I click.
You can use the keypad, I think, to, or,
Yeah, you got it.
oh, you s-
I'm here to talk about our project, give you a little bit more of information about what we are trying to accomplish and how the thoroughfare plan impacts that. Recognizing the thoroughfare plan was adopted in 2004, I'd like to suggest that a lot has changed since then. A lot of the development has occurred in this area that the Hopkinsville plan, thoroughfare plan was supposed to fix or help. And the 48 improvements have also been accomplished. So I'm not quite sure the breadth of their proposed thoroughfare plan is really necessary at this point in time. I'm not sure that it actually improves traffic movement. It doesn't minimize conflict. And the thoroughfare plan won't encourage development. So this is the project that we've just completed next door to the Fifth Third property, and I'm going to keep referring to the adjacent site that we're talking about as the Fifth Third site. But this is the one that's just now completed next door to the Fifth Third site. Shooters is to the left on this page, and then Kroger. This is the project that we are proposing at the Fifth Third site. And in spite of Daryl's consternation about having another gas station, we do propose one on the corner. What I would like to point out about this site are a couple of things. Number
Where
one,
would the Fifth Third building be here?
they won't be here.
Retail here.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Fifth Third is selling the property.
Fifth Third is selling the property to the Myers-White Cooper Company.
Oh, so there's no Fifth Third bank going there?
That's correct.
Okay, so I was confused. So there's not a Fifth Third branch going here. You're the developer and you're coming in and saying, I want to put more retail stuff, a gas station, another strip center, what have you in.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. We've done a lot of development in the Cincinnati area. We're a buy and hold or build and hold developer. We're not merchant builders that build something and then spin it off. So we build things that we like to think are going to be functional and financially successful. One of the things we like to do is separate these parcels so we don't have one large parking lot that's going to be a free-for-all. So you see that we have interior roadways that connect to our various access points. And, well,
You don't show on that screen, but you can walk over to it. There's a microphone here.
oh, okay. So you see the internal drive here that connects with 22 and 3. Then we have an access road here that connects to another right in, right out. And then the road that has been talked about that would come through here and connect to the property I just showed you the photo of we had with the ribbon cut. So that's right here. We've had preliminary discussions with DOT regarding access and the traffic study that we prepared to illustrate what we all agreed would be our study area and what we were trying to accomplish. So we have a right-in, right-out here on 48, and a right-in, right-out here on 22 and 3. We have a full access movement here. So for a 7-acre site, to only have one full access point for trucks and life safety vehicles and whatnot to come into this parcel, it's kind of remarkable. But we're at a very busy intersection. We have a large, approximately 20,000 square foot user proposed for here, and then a smaller strip center here, the fuel center, and some sort of a quick serve breakfast kind of thing there. This is the car lot right here. So if you looked at some of our other properties, we create these kind of boulevards, it's landscaped, they look nice. And I think the community would appreciate it. Now, if I can make this work. And there's the Hopkinsville thoroughfare plan as it relates to our property. It goes through the buildings. So now our math doesn't work.
Well, I mean, the line goes through the building right now. So tell me if the yellow proposed road hugged the line, your property line a little bit more and basically.
Like that one.
Yeah, and it was.
Right. Well, we still lose, it's over just about an acre of land when you add the right-of-way, because we also have to, right now you have a 0 setback with commercial to commercial zoning. Now with the road, we'll have a 50-foot setback from the road. So in addition to the, what did you say our road was going to be now? It's not 60 anymore?
42 would be the public right-of-way.
42? So 42 plus 50. So I got 90 feet from my property line that I can't develop.
Well, that to me is a way more compelling, issue. I guess it's one thing if we wanted to try to purchase that property for the purpose of the thoroughfare plan, but I'm certainly sympathetic to, we don't want to devalue the property or make the financial piece of it unworkable. I don't think that is what the issue is, which is why I think, being open to a deviation from it makes sense. I think it's just what you're suggesting is no connection, and this is a specific connection. And so I get back to my question is there a connection that allows for the development to move forward and the financials to be able to be, doable?
I got more.
Okay.
And so the corner, right there at the corner, the light, that's going to be a gas station?
Yes. I mean, none of this will happen if we can't come up with solutions for this access. I mean, because, hey, they're not gonna come in.
None of it's gonna happen with you,
Right.
potentially. Okay.
Right. So, I mean, it's not just me, they're telling me that they have to have this, right? I mean, the businesses that will operate from this property want to be able to confirm how their customers are gonna.
Mr. Cooper, can I ask one question of the trustees? You guys specifically said you've got two,
I want to see it develop standalone as a huge, like, think of the UDF footprint. There are gas station scenarios like at Casey's where it would be more the totality of the development or in its whole, whereas this is multiple lots in retail or service.
But you're gonna have a gas station on the
I
corner.
don't have an issue with, I have an issue as a standalone as our other gas station development is at that corner. I'm supportive of this plan.
So this plan was actually created by Dave, and he gave that to our engineer. This access stays here across from the other strip center across the street where I think the school board has offices. So they want to maintain this so there's a four-way. It's 800 feet from the intersection, which makes it a little questionable as to whether or not you could put a traffic signal there as traffic intensity increases. So there's that. But what I liked about this
The
plan.
ODOT will decide that, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so when is that decision coming from ODOT about your, the access down there?
We submitted in October.
We were expected to have had that report review coming here today, and that hasn't happened, unfortunately.
I don't know,
That seems
471. I think they've got their hands full, but. So what I liked about this plan that Dave created was that he was going to shift some of the roadway onto the car lot. So it's on our property here so that it's maintaining this curb cut that we are in front of DOT with. Then he's coming over there as quickly as I think the proper radius would require, and then gets over here at this point. Now, I've lost some parking, but I'm sharing the development cost. Can we get them to do it? What happens? Do I build this road in anticipation of someday this happening? That bothers me. And what also bothers me is here we had this nice boulevard here for our tenant, and we don't have that with this plan. We also lack confirmation of how we're going to get into this curb cut. We had conversations with Kurt about this, and he said, well, why not put it back here? Well, I'm not sure that the customers or my customers or the customers in the community will appreciate getting to this road from back here. And I'm not sure that life safety and our tractor trailers that are serving this building specifically will be able to make those turning radiuses. This configuration does not work. Then let's talk about the economics. The thoroughfare plan provides for the development of these roads by the private property owner. I'm building a road that will benefit others and actually doesn't provide any benefit to me, to my property. In fact, we consider this a detriment. I've lost land. Fifth Third isn't going to sell me the land for less because, well, gosh, you got to give the county 3/4 of an acre. And I've lost buildable area. So, with that backdrop, that's why we're kind of at an impasse with the engineer's office. We just don't see how we can accomplish what they want at that intersection and still have a viable project financially or functionally. So, the Cooper Company isn't a litigious organization. But I was so curious to learn whether there's some rule or law that allows the county to say, you want to build your shopping center, you build my road. And no compensation for the loss of land. So I invited our attorney to join the meeting, and with your permission, I'd like to give him a minute to share with you his thoughts about that.
At your detriment, go for it.
Yeah, well.
I love hearing from lawyers who are threatening to sue us.
No, I gave you the preamble that we're not litigious, but this is the ground on which you are basing a decision.
No, I actually said, I'm very sympathetic to the property rights argument, but as I understand it, you don't own this property.
Right.
Right, thank you.
I'm Dan Fowles from the Taft Law Firm on behalf of the Cooper Company, and well, Randy has teed that up, so he did ask us to look at, whether in our view this is legal. Just give you a little background, and we think there's a good question that it does raise significant constitutional issues. The U.S. Supreme Court has held that exactions imposed as a condition to issuing development permits are subject to the limitations under the takings clause of the Fifth Amendment. That is basically the taking of property for public purpose without just compensation. 1987 and 1994, in the Nolan and Dolan cases, the Supreme Court established a two-pronged test to address the constitutionality of permit exactions. Those cases held that if a government wants to impose a condition requiring a property owner to give up property in exchange for a land use permit, it must satisfy two requirements. First, the exaction must have an essential nexus to the government's stated land use interest. This ensures that the government is acting for its stated purpose and not leveraging its permitting monopoly to take private property without paying for it. And second, the government must show that the exaction has a rough proportionality to the government's stated land use interest. Specifically, the condition may not require a landowner to give up or pay more than is necessary to mitigate the harms resulting from the development. This Nolan-Dolan test was reaffirmed in subsequent cases of the Supreme Court. In the Kuntz decision in 2013, they specifically addressed whether financial exactions or development fees are subject to the test, the Nolan-Dolan test, and they ruled that it was subject to that test. And then just this spring, in 2024, in the Sheets case, the court addressed the issue of whether exactions pursuant to general legislative actions were subject to the same scrutiny as determinations made pursuant to administrative or adjudicative actions. Some states, in particular California, had held that permit conditions resulting from more general legislative actions were not subject to the dual nexus test. Here, though, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected the California approach and that legislative permit conditions are not exempt from the takings limitations in the Nolan-Dolan test. To them, there was no distinction as to whether the plan involved or the permitting issues, requirements came from general legislative action as opposed to a specific administrative requirement. These cases recognize the same two basic ideas. One, the government should not be able to use permit applications to coerce landowners into giving the government what it would otherwise have to pay for. And two, however, the government may legitimately require landowners to, quote, carry their own weight in mitigating their development plans so that landowners do not impose costs on their neighbors. In these cases, the burden is on the government, not the developer, to demonstrate that the permit conditions are closely related to the applicable governmental interest and closely related to the impact that the development will have on that interest. With respect to the thoroughfare conditions here, first I note that under Sheets, the fact that the thoroughfare plan was part of a legislative action taken years ago by the county rather than necessarily an adjudicative action does not make it exempt from the Nolan and Dolan test. In our view, these permit conditions simply fail that test. So the first prong, the county's interest in traffic impacts caused by this development is admittedly a government interest, a legitimate government interest. However, whether requiring the developer to build part of the thoroughfare would, or is actually intended to, mitigate the traffic congestion caused by this development seems dubious in our view. That is, it's not clear how a road, what is currently a road to nowhere for the foreseeable future, addresses the possible traffic impacts at issue here. Arguably, it will make traffic, as Randy noted, could make traffic congestion worse in the interim. At best, while it remains a road to nowhere, its possible impact on traffic congestion will be nil. Might it alleviate traffic congestion caused by the development if the thoroughfare is completed in 10, 20, 30, or 40 years from now? No one really knows. Yet even if it would, at some unknown future time, actually mitigate the traffic congestion, work to mitigate the traffic congestion here, the burden placed on the company is entirely disproportionate to the development's impact. Beyond the as Randy mentioned, beyond the substantial cost of building and dedicating the road will be a substantial negative impact on the value of the remaining parcel compared to its current configuration. Simply, the company is being asked to carry more than its own weight with respect to the thoroughfare. And we don't know how the required thoroughfare construction can be legitimately defended as closely related to address the actual impact the development might have on traffic. The bottom line, it really appears that the thoroughfare plan is more of a wish list that frankly has little or nothing to do with this particular development. It's apparently something the county desires, or has desired for quite some time, but rather than pay for it, as you would typically expect to be the case for a major roadway project. Instead, it seems that it wants to prefer to wait for a developer to come along to pass the buck to. And regardless of whether that development is the underlying driving force for the need for the thoroughfare. As the Supreme Court has noted in its cases, when the government wants property to build a road, it typically must compensate the property owner at fair market value. It cannot simply use its permitting power to coerce the owner into giving the property that would otherwise have to acquire through condemnation. In my view, the facts here are the very sort of coercion that the government's concerned about. Here, the thoroughfare plan has been on the county's drawing board for over 20 years. In essence, via the thoroughfare plan, it's tipped its hand as what it really desires, regardless of the impact of the particular development. And since the thoroughfare plan was drawn up to benefit the county and the public generally, it's the public who should pay for it. The very purpose behind the takings clause is to spare the individual property owners from bearing the burdens the Constitution requires be borne by the public as a whole.
But you don't own, but your client doesn't own the property, correct?
No, it has it under contract.
Right, but they don't own the property.
They don't own it.
So
but
they
would
wouldn't
be-
have standing until they close on the property.
Well, I'm not sure of that, but they have it under contract, and it's an imposition that that by current plans has shown that we would have to dedicate this road and build it out. That's been the current engineer's proposal.
Well, what I'm hearing them say is that they are open to alternatives and have proffered one up that I hear that the developer who's wishing to purchase the property doesn't love, for, I'm sure, very good reasons. What is still unclear to me is if there isn't some solution that allows the engineer to be able to to maintain access that they want to maintain without infringing on what the proposed development that is on the drawing board here.
Well, I don't know that they worked out the plan that was set forth to me was one in which basically we'd be required to build the road, dedicate and build the roadway. So, hopefully, maybe they can work out something, I don't know, but that's not what I've understood to be the case up to this point. That the plan is to build the road and dedicate it, incur that cost, all at the developer's expense. So. and it's just one-
Counselor, I tend to totally disagree with you that relative to characterizing it as any sort of a taking, that the people of Warren County do not need a road there as this was an undeveloped lot. The necessity for a road comes as a result of the development, and the proportionality of having the developer develop the road contiguous with their property is a long-standing tradition that has been completely lawful. We're not asking this developer to complete the entire road, only one relative to his property line. So, and if this didn't develop, we wouldn't need a road there. So it's not incumbent on the people of Warren County to pay for this road. It's the future development that now is going to benefit from this.
Well, no, I would say it's properties all around there that's been on design and plans for years to develop it from it. Does no, so we disagree with you on that one. And finally, though, I just say there's also an equal protections argument. The shooter's property to the north, that they've mentioned, has part of the thoroughfare plan running through it. Yet there was no exaction on it, a requirement that it dedicate or build out the roadway. So to me, you know, we're also imposing something on this developer that you haven't imposed on other developers within the area. You know, how that property gets built out, I don't know. But, you know, I disagree with you that this is, to me, this is not, when it's not necessary, and it's a substantial imposition to put on our client, to build a roadway that's, you know, on your drawing plans for you.
I totally understand what it is you're saying. For the last hour and a half, though, I've heard the engineer saying, it doesn't have to be exactly like this. And I'm saying, I'm open to a variation that doesn't look like this. And all I'm talking about is what's on the paper. And so, to me, it's not that I don't want to provide an opportunity for you to develop the property in a way that, you know, makes sense for you economically. But I also respect where the engineer's office is coming from, and I don't hear them saying it's this yellow line that has been on the books for 20 years or nothing. Right. I mean, they're saying, yes, this has developed over the last 20 years. When it was put in place, it was, to Dave's point, it was not developed land, so they put it somewhere. It's just conceivable to me that there is some alternative that's yet to be explored that allows everybody to get what it is they want. And because it's so unusual to end up in this circumstance where the engineer, it's not that we don't sometimes disagree with the engineer, it's when they come here though, they say, we're just at an impasse here, and you know, we could live with it if you did it like this way, and okay, you know, no harm, no foul. I respect the developer and your expertise and your investment in this community and others, and you know, you have a very good reputation. I respect the township trustees and how they wish to develop their community, but I have equal respect for and much more, you know, working relationship with the engineer's office. And so, you know, with only two of us here, you know, I'm just not inclined to go against the engineer's office without really understanding, like, I hear your arguments about what's written on this piece of paper that's 20 years old, but I don't think that's really what is up for debate. I mean, ultimately is what's up for debate. If we wanted to make a decision now, we could make that decision now if you had two votes. But, you know, Dave, I don't know where your head is, but I just really feel like, you know, I'm not interested in delaying for the sake of delaying, but I'm not comfortable in just looking at the engineer's office, and the first time I'm hearing this, and completely disregarding what they have to say, because it's just not in keeping with their reputation and nature either. So I'm accepting the testimony that has been brought forward today with all due respect, and I have a lot of trust and respect for the other public officials here, but I have that same respect and trust of our elected engineer's office, and that's where I am having trouble agreeing to a variance without fully understanding that.
So, thank you, Counselor. So, Kurt, I mean, when they're talking, I mean, essentially the essence of what we're trying to accomplish is connectivity and traffic flow, right? Yes. That is in the public purpose, correct, Bruce? Any other thoughts on?
Yeah. Let me say to Mr. Cooper, your attorney's recitation of law is accurate. What we don't have here is any way to apply the law to the facts, because we don't know what all the facts are. You've obviously done a traffic impact study and tendered it to ODOT for their review, and you haven't gotten the review comments back. The question I asked earlier about what's the site, what's the development, that related to the Dolan problem, which is the rough proportionality. And there's obviously some impact from your development, but we don't have any information here today that tells us what that impact is. Mr. Faust may be right. I can't answer that, nor can they, because we don't have that information to answer that. I don't want them to make a decision without all the information that they need to do so. The decision they make upon your request has to be unanimous. And obviously, mathematically, today unanimously would be 2. If we continue to the third commissioner to be back with us, it would have to be 3 to be able to do that. You're right in some respects, Commissioner Young, but you're not right in all respects, because we don't have all the information to make that determination. So if the thoroughfare plan requires a 42-foot road to be developed across Mr. Cooper's property that he acquires at a future date, the traffic impact study information may tell us there is some impact and he has to develop something. So this isn't an all or nothing, but does he have to develop a 42-foot, dedicate 42-foot of right of way and develop, a super thoroughfare plan? It may or it may not, we just don't know. And if we required him to do that above and beyond what he would have to require based on his impact, then there could be some risk that the county would be responsible for that. But he doesn't get off the hook completely, because the way I understood, he's saying he wants this curb cut from ODOT. He wants this access
So
into his
Bruce, would your advice be, irrespective of what you just said, which I hear you, why would we want to make a decision prior to ODOT making it theirs?
Well, I'm sure the engineer's office has seen their engineer's traffic impact study, and whatever ODOT allows, ODOT may not allow this, because I heard there's some spatial separation between their main curb cut, full access, and then this one. They may not even allow this.
That's my question, is that if they don't allow it, then the connectivity issue becomes even more prudent.
Yeah, I think it would be prudent to wait until we have that response from ODOT, yes. So making a decision today would not be prudent.
Yeah, Kurt Weber, just wanted to mention that, initially when we had our discussions, with Myers Cooper and Martin and our office and the township, that was one thing that we were thinking would be helpful to know what ODOT's position was on the traffic impact study, because we don't control those access points, on 22 and 3 or 48. But Mr. Cooper made I think a good point that, the thoroughfare plan, in some ways is independent of what ODOT does, and I think he's right. But we were kind of wanting to wait until the TIS, traffic impact study results and review from ODOT were complete, just to know, because if they don't allow for an access point here or there, maybe this discussion is moot. I don't know, but I think Mr. Cooper made a good point that, hey, the thoroughfare is, your jurisdiction. ODOT has a jurisdiction of the traffic impact study. We are not, the 42-foot right-of-way and all that, that's what it would take to build a public roadway. And so that's why we mentioned at the beginning, can we do something else to accommodate the pathway.
Which is why I was gonna ask about if he's having a boulevard, as he described it, in
Right.
between his buildings that gives connectivity to the rest of the internal
Right.
development, does that constitute the traffic flow that we're looking for?
That's what that's what we're open to, just because then you wouldn't have the setback issues, the right-of-way, the setback from the right-of-way line like he's talking about. So I guess what was shown up there, if that could be private, such that, with cross-access easements, then, the devil may be in the details on how that's done and how it's laid out by their engineer, but yet, it can accomplish the same thing, without having the setback issues. So, so yeah, if there's a way that we can work it out with the private, without the 42-foot right-of-way and without the setback requirements, I think that's where we're prepared.
And is there a requirement for them to have a left turn out onto 22 and 3? I mean, it's like, once people are there at that gas station, how are they gonna get, that way?
Yeah.
Is it, they're coming out by shooters and round?
Is it a requirement? That'll all be determined in the traffic impact study as to what ODOT allows.
All right, well, maybe we can just tidy this up. I think that we're not gonna do something right this second. However, I think you have heard the board clearly state we would like to see that property developed, and even with you, if possible, that if the trustees are saying that's a reasonable plan that they support, we support what they're doing. I think you're hearing us tell the engineer, we don't want to directly go against you. However, we're okay with a modification of this, including things like determining that the internal flow of this particular spot, this particular, 6 acres or whatever it is? 7 acres, that this connects to a boulevard out that you can then go to a light to turn left and then sit through another light to go left. Those types of things are okay with us, that it doesn't necessarily have to be a new road that comes out, because again, I think that's going to be problematic as much traffic is going that way out, towards Little Miami High School, that 800 feet away from a major intersection, you're gonna put another light. That's a problem.
Yeah, that probably won't happen.
So that's the whole, okay, so now we have a turn out of there to the left, which is just gonna sit and sit and sit, because that traffic flow both ways is miserable.
Right.
So I think that's even problematic in and of itself. So I would encourage you to look in the context of the board is open to variance, but how to internally get that, and if he used the word boulevard, connect that over to the internal structure of the other developments that he owns, to have it out to the light there by shooters, that's going to be the primary way out, if it's not a right in and right out.
Yeah, I mean, that connection, as Mr. Cooper's proposing, that will be there, because they've got cross-access with shooters already, and we're not against that. Our concern is, the 120 or 30 vehicles per hour that may come through there. We're not privy to those agreements, but I think that agreement, that cross-access easement between shooters and the development they just built.
And if it's more of a boulevard, that's a heck of a lot more palatable to you, I have a feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it from our perspective, it wouldn't necessarily have to be a boulevard, because that sometimes then it's 3 lanes wide. I mean, it could be 2 lanes, and even like a driveway path, on the site, without having to be public right of way. Yeah, our concern is, you got the connectivity between shooters and what they just built, but to add this proposed development to that, I mean, I don't know if shooters signed up for 120 vehicles across their frontage. That's between them and shooters, but that's why we feel like we need to maintain, what's shown here, but it doesn't have to be a public roadway. It could be,
All right, well, I'm hearing reasonable people suggest reasonable things, and I would ask the developer, basically, come up and give a few inches here or there, and you might completely get your way. I mean, so, and engineer, we definitely want to do this. We want to honor the Hamilton Township's wishes on this, so we want to be creative and find a way. We're okay with a variance, but come up with something, throw them a bone, you know, basically to come up with something that will placate the engineer's office, and I think let's work this out. And in the meantime, we'll wait for ODOT to render a decision, and hopefully you guys continue this discussion. But I think that's, I don't want to speak for you, but is that the consensus of the board?
I think that seems reasonable, so are you suggesting then we continue the public hearing to some not too distant period of time, so that we're not belaboring the point?
Yeah, it's not open-ended, but yet we want to give the parties some time.
May we ask Mr. Cooper? Mr. Cooper, do you have a closing date?
No, it's open, Fifth Third has, we're well past the contract closing date.
Okay.
Fifth Third has been very generous, understanding the situation we're dealing with here.
So nothing imminent.
Yeah, mid-January? All right, sounds good. 21st?
January 21st at 10 a.m.
Is that all right, Hamilton
Yeah,
Township?
If there's anything you guys can do as a body to leverage ODOT, that we, in this situation and in others, we see expectations for timeline and review something not being met.
We
So
feel your
whoever's
pain.
office could
We feel your pain, like.
help encourage that. I mean, we wanted to have
We
you
do it
understand
too.
that they
Brent Spence Bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot, I mean, the Brent Spence Bridge.
Yeah.
471.
Yeah.
And the 471, but, yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
it's the holiday season. My fear is we'd be back here in early January and still.
Well, and hopefully, my goal would be, regardless of what ODOT says, that if reasonable people can, again, throw them a bone, you know, to do something, and then with the aspect of, you know, the board wants to do something. Fair enough.
So do we need a motion to continue the hearing, Bruce?
Yes,
till-
in progress.
Okay, I move that we continue the hearing in progress until January 21st at 10 a.m.
And yes. Very good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time. This was extraordinary.
Well, we're not called extraordinary very often, baby.
It is the holidays. Very good. Historical Society update?
Thank you very much.
Good seeing you.
Well, I haven't cleared a room like that for a while.
Welcome to our world.
Thank you. I want to express our gratitude from the membership of the board of the Warren County Historical Society for your support. And I feel it's only appropriate that we give you a report once a year to let you know what's going on, where the museum is headed, and what our plans are for future. We had a very good year this year. We had 18,360 visitors, which sets a record. From 37 states and 9 foreign countries, our membership has expanded to 2,000 people. Our volunteers from every city in Warren County put in 2024, 4,238 volunteer hours in the year. We were selected in January to be the first museum outside of Washington, D.C. by the American Battlefield Trust and the National Daughters of the American Revolution to exhibit the American Revolution Experience, which was a collection of artifacts, and then we pulled artifacts from the Revolutionary War, soldiers indigenous to Warren County, and our collection and this exhibition drew people into the region from 9 states, many of them staying overnight in various capacities in Monroe, in Franklin, in Springboro, in Mason, and of course here in Lebanon. In February, the Armstrong Gallery of Flight, which is pictured here, was awarded position in Aviation Trail
with the National Park Service through Dayton, Ohio, and it is ever expanding. In June, we did the Festival of the Arts, which showcased Warren County artists and performers, 60 artisans, 20 performers, and we drew 8,000 people in the first day on the same weekend that Summer Fair was going on in Cincinnati. So it was pretty quite extraordinary, and we're going to go ahead and do that again. We created an affiliate membership program with the other museums in Warren County. And the reason we did that was I realized the difficulties they're facing. When I spoke to the ladies who were trying to run the Harveysburg Free Black School, and they were running short of advice on some projects they were doing, as well as guidance when it came to creating pamphlets, brochures to promote. We did that internally. The museum here ate the cost of that. All they had to do was come and pick that up. We provide website information for them, and as a matter of fact, that effort is going to be expanding as we're working with Tom Seddon and the Warren County Foundation, and we're putting together Arts Warren County, because the arts organizations and the museums in this county can send tons of informational material to outlets in Cincinnati and Dayton, and none of it gets picked up. So this will create a website where you can go and find out what is happening on the weekend in Springboro, in Mason, in Franklin, in Waynesville, at the museums, where there are concerts, where there are performances in the community theaters. And the museum and the foundation are busy sponsoring that program. And I'm very pleased that that's going to begin in January. Last year, we created an advisory council to our board, made up of experts from education, from business, from government, from arts organizations all over the region, because the board realizes they do not have and do not want to have a myopic vision of what the museum should and could be. So this group has been providing us with some incredible impetus and ideas for future stability for the institution, which is one of the things that is one of my goals, however long I may be around the old place. I'm very glad today they let me out. So at any rate, I'm very pleased to announce that in this year, we were given $1.1 million in folk art by a gentleman who was the past president of the Cincinnati Stock Exchange and one of the directors of NASDAQ in Europe. He had collections in 9 major museums across the United States. Never in my wildest dreams would I think I would be unpacking things coming in from the Rockefeller Museum in Williamsburg or the Metropolitan Museum of Art to permanently reside here in Warren County. It is unbelievable. That collection now surpasses the Cincinnati Art Museums, and it is one of the largest in the state of Ohio. And there's more to come, because it's coming in from the American Folk Art Museum in New York, from the St. Louis and Chicago Art Museums, the High Museum of Art. He has this stuff scattered everywhere. So it's amazing to be able to open a package and there's a painting by Will Moses, the grandson of Grandma Moses, and it's now in our collection. Or to unwrap a painting that won the Harmon Medal in Harlem in 1926 that hung in the Metropolitan Museum of Art and is now in our lobby. It's unbelievable. The same gentleman also gifted us with $400,000 in Adena and Hopewell pottery that he's been collecting for 70 years. Now these items are utilitarian in nature. They did not come from grave sites, nor did they come from federal lands. So they're not under the aegis of let's bury everything again. They came from refuse pits, and they were used simply from day-to-day living. We also received the Martha Boyce Shaker collection and the Clarkson Butterworth Quaker collection, so on both ends of the spectrum. Educationally, we're busy with our Lunch and Learn series. Music at the Museum, which runs February through June, is sold out at 130 persons a concert coming from all over the region. We are working with the University of Dayton and my former employer and alma mater, Miami University, to develop K through 12 programs, both in the museum and outside the museum, to touch every school in Warren County. Also, we're looking at a teacher's docent program so that they will earn continuing education units through those two institutions for their participation in what we're doing at the museum, in telling the story of Warren County. And that all starts off in the fall of 2025. John Hancock, Dr. John Hancock from the University of Cincinnati, is featuring our collection in a new book that's being published by the UC Press. It comes out in June. It is the Hopewell Trail definitive book of the World Heritage Site. And it begins and ends at the Harmon Museum with the Warren County Historical Society. Also, at the end of 25-26, the museum is again featured in one of the first publications on the World Heritage Site by the Smithsonian Institution, and we're very proud of that. I couldn't be more pleased with the interaction we're having with the Ohio History Connection and with the Hopewell Earthworks on working with that World Heritage Site development at Fort Ancient. It's very important that that World Heritage Site be developed properly. You have one shot at doing it right, and we want to make sure that it really showcases not only the Hopewell culture, but Warren County as well. We're also involved, of course, with the Dr. Joseph Warren statue that will be erected on the front of the lawn of the museum, looking at the first site of the first courthouse in Warren County. And then the maquette will be put into a nice case that we have already prepared for it, that perhaps can grace your lobby here, a full-scale version of that. There are some other things that are going on. I had a surprise visit from the ambassador from His Majesty the King of Sweden, who came through the door, visited the museum, and I did relate to him stories about how on old farmhouses when I was a boy would be back a long lane and you would see a tall pine or spruce tree when there were virtually no landscape companies around, and those trees were well over 100 years old. And I remembered Hazel Spencer Phillips telling me the story of how the Swedes who had immigrated to Wisconsin and Michigan would bring wagon loads in the spring of pine tree and spruce tree seedlings down into this part of the country, and that became a status symbol for the farmers. So when you look back that long lane and see that old house and see that old sort of scraggly tree now, that intrigued the ambassador from Sweden, to say the least. We also had a contingent of craftsmen from Tokyo, Japan, who flew directly from Tokyo to Greater Cincinnati, rented a car, drove to the museum, spent the day looking at the Shaker collection because they determined by their research it was the finest in the country, and I asked if they would stay over, we would help get a room at the Golden Lamb. They said no, they're flying back to Tokyo. They make Shaker reproduction furniture. And so now Warren County Union Village furniture, the three pieces that we gave them permission to recreate, will now have the county's name as well as Union Village on their craftsmanship. We were very lucky to be awarded the state capital grant, and for that we're very grateful because the buildings, quite frankly, had needed a lot of repair. And I'll be quite honest with you, it was eating up our endowment. 20,000 here, 20,000 there, 15,000 there. We couldn't even find parts for security systems. Cameras would no longer work. We had windows that had been covered with plywood back in the 60s that were rotting internally, and water was going down in between the walls. All of these things were compromising the collections and the security and safety of not only the staff but our visitors as well. So that's what we're focused on even as we speak, getting that up and moving. We're restructuring all of the finances over my tenure. We cannot run this institution like a mom and pop store. It has to be responsible, so we have initiated a whole different chart of accounts. We have upended how we do things and how we do designated funds, and I think we're providing an incredible stability for the future of the museum. PR-wise, we've had visitors from the entire staff of the Cincinnati Observatory to the Cincinnati Museum Association, Incredibly, and very luckily, if you pick up Ohio Magazine in January, we're going to be featured there. And the collection will be featured there. And I will be able to announce, I hope, by month's end, a former executive of Procter & Gamble has just given us his collection of aeronautical, locomotive, and maritime vessels valued at around $400,000, and they're being transferred here permanently into the collection. So we have to figure out how to fold all of that in, and John Zimkus is very busy trying to figure out where was the SS Thomas Corwin, where was the destroyer during the Second World War that was named for General Schenck of Franklin, and we're doing our due diligence to put all of that together. All of what I'm telling you about here is possible because of our board, because of your support, because of our volunteers, and we have a staff of 1 full-time, 1 3/4-time, and 5 part-time people taking care of everything I just laid out for you. So yes, and we also include maintaining the rentals and all the other things that go on, kids' programs in the Beetle Cabin. Mr. Niehoff, who has been very supportive of our efforts over the last year and very wise in helping us especially restructure so much of the museum, believes that we are going to be and are emerging as the most prominent museum in the Cincinnati-Dayton corridor.
Buck Niehoff?
Pardon?
Buck Niehoff?
It's his brother, K. Richard B. And Buck is quite frequently there and is our guest as well. And Buck has indicated a lot of his collection is coming here. There are people that are dissatisfied with some things going on at other institutions, so we're reaping the benefit. Well, here's the Harmon, and this is, of course, the Gallery of Flight. And again, the section dedicated to Neil, and we're adding more and more things to that as we go. Obviously, we added the moon. And Beetle Cabin, I wish you could see what goes on there the first Saturdays of the month. With fireplace going, and the kids are in there making shortbread, they're doing all sorts of crafts. They took sticks and built cabins to replicate the Beetle Cabin. And we're talking parents and kids making apple cider, and we're talking groups of 30, 40 people. Again, not just from Lebanon. We're in Lebanon, but the people come from all over the county, and we're very pleased with that. This is, of course, the Dooning Auditorium in the Armstrong Conference Center, and it provides a lot of facility rentals, and it also provides space for the Hamilton Township trustees, for the Warren County Municipal League, free of charge, so that they can use this facility, and it's a center point where they can all gather and meet, and we offer that too to our affiliate organizations. This is the Folk Art Collection, a renovated gallery, and this is only part of it. The weather vane that you see barely up in the top was curated by Mrs. John D. Rockefeller Jr. and was in the first exhibit of folk art in the United States in the 1920s. The ship in the lower left-hand corner was created by the son of a man who survived the wreck of the Essex when the great whale sank the ship. And that's what inspired Melville to write Moby Dick. And we have all the paperwork and his father's story that came along with that boat. And the pig in the back, well, that came from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Kind of a vicious looking thing, but folk art, you know, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it certainly is an incredibly colorful gallery. Glendower, of course, is now in private hands, happily. The artist Charlie Harper's son and daughter-in-law purchased it, and they would not begin to work on the house unless I approved of the architectural changes, which were exquisite. And I said, but it's your house. And they've told us that anytime the Historical Society wants to use the grounds or use the house, they're just a phone call away for any purpose whatsoever. Very, very gracious in their support of that. We repositioned some of the best furniture out of Glendower within this room, and this is now decked out all for Christmas of 1840. The museum, of course, we're going to be starting some renovation, and hopefully we'll get leaks plugged and new wiring and better security all the way around. So that is by song and dance, and our new lobby there, of course, if you have not visited. But I'm quite pleased, and again, none of this is possible without your support and the support of the wider community. And I feel that it's our responsibility to let you know that we're being good stewards with what we have to work with. We earn around 85% of our operating budget. So everything that you see is something that we have a program whose income is designed to go for specific things. And I think there's a lot in the future. And I thank you for the time this morning.
Professor, always good seeing you.
Well,
and
thank you,
I
sir.
always learn a lot.
Well, I guess they'll lock me up in there again for the next God knows how long. But thank you very much and have a very great
Happy holidays.
If I would have listened to my college professors as much as I listened to you, I might have made something of myself. So.
Well, I tell people I was trained how to put a class into a coma in 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Very good. We have a public hearing continuation to consider rezoning application of 10 acres from B2 to light industrial I-1 in Franklin Township.
Good morning. Ray Dratt with Warren County Building and Zoning. Thank you for the commissioners and members of the board. The audience is filled with homeowners as well as the applicant. So I will start with the case number is 2024-04. The applicant owner is Mobile Tech USA, also known as Modula. The township is Franklin. The address is 3489 Pennyroyal Road, Franklin, Ohio, 45005. The property identification number is 0421400048. Property size is approximately 10.0059 acres, and it has approximately 393 feet of road frontage. The current zoning district is B2, Community Commercial Business Zone. It's a single-family residential is the future land use. It is currently residential. The zoning requested is I-1, light industrial manufacturing zone. And the issue for consideration here today is to rezone the property from B2 to I-1, light industrial manufacturing zone, to allow access to their business at the back piece of the property. Here's the process we've gone through so far. RPC, September 26th, recommended approval. The Warren County Rural Zoning Commission recommended approval on October 15th, and we are here today for your consideration. Here's an aerial view of the property. The red bordered is the entire property. The blue border inside of that is a different account number, same parcel number. Here's a vicinity aerial map, let you know where we're looking at, is reference to the county. There is no flood in the area. The zoning map you can see to the west is going to be R1B, which is residential. To the north, R1B residential. The area it is currently in, and to the east is B2. And then to the south is the Franklin city thereof, which is currently industrial. Here's the notification map. We sent out approximately 77 notifications to the property owners within that 500 feet. The future land use has it as single-family residential. RPC put this slide in here. Here's a Warren County thoroughfare plan. They list 432.60 feet of road frontage. The previous 393 that was referenced is provided by the applicant. This is a line distance rather than if you're just looking at frontage. And the daily traffic, 5,601 vehicles. That is, I believe, 2023 data. Here's some of the concept plans that were submitted. The one on the far right shows the subject area in red, and that was the original drawing that they submitted upon application. The blue in the south is the current area that is owned by the company, and on the left is a secondary concept plan that they submitted upon approval of the engineer's office.
Is this in the blue, the old Dayton Daily News
Yes,
printing
ma'am.
plant? And so the applicant is the new owner of that facility is looking to expand into the red? Or
They just want
they
to-
need a rezoning?
Correct. What they want to do is they want to put a driveway in on the property that is in Franklin Township
I
so that
see.
they can have access
To
to
get access to the
Austin
facility.
Landing instead of going all the way
Come off
down.
Austin Boulevard?
Austin Boulevard, yeah.
Mhm.
But correct.
So they're not trying to build something there, they just want a road
They're
access?
just going to do a driveway, yes, sir.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, Module itself is expanding the company, but it'll be inside of the blue
The
zone
blue
in the
zone.
city
That's
of
correct.
Franklin.
This is strictly for a driveway.
So they want to be able to access Austin Boulevard to access I-75.
Correct. So here's the driveway culvert permit application approved by the Warren County Engineers Office. Something of interest is on page 2, also on the right. The permit is approved for a total of 10 heavy trucks and 80 vehicle trips per day. And then it shows that the new width of the road, which I'll let the applicant speak to, is 32 feet. As I said earlier, RPC recommended approval. And the RZC also recommended approval and gave 2 recommendations, if you will. The first one requiring a 6-foot privacy fence with buffer type D. We will address that as part of the zoning application. So when they submit their zoning application, we will ensure that the proper buffers will be obtained. And the ODOT traffic study, it's a county road. I don't think we can recommend that. Here is the 2 criteria that the RZC recommended, A and D, highlighted in yellow, and that's what they based their decision upon. I leave you with any questions, but let me show you, here's a chart if you need it. I've got it for what is the approved as far as the I-1. This is probably the most significant slide. So what it shows is what's required by the I-1 zone. So to the west, which is where our residents are, they will be required to do a type D buffer, which is 50 feet in width and must be a 10-foot height. On the east side, which is going to be the B2 area, it's going to be a type B as in boy, which is a 20-foot width and a 6-foot height.
So when we say 10 feet in height, are we talking trees, or are we talking a mound?
Whatever you want to construct, sir, it's just a combination of both. It has to be a height of 10. It can be a 4-foot mound, a 6-foot fence, a 2-foot mound, an 8-foot fence, or all trees. It has to be a combination of trees, berm, bushes, and stuff like that.
Okay. Do you have a quick question?
Can it be concrete? That's my question. Can it be concrete?
The materials that they construct the type D buffer is up to them. If they can do a concrete wall, whatever they need to do. As long as they meet the 100% opacity, they meet the standards. 50-foot wide, 10-foot tall, and you can't see through it.
Can you go back to that slide, the one with the buffer?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, the existing property is, in the bottom right-hand corner where it says City of Franklin, that black line is the existing property they're wanting to access?
Yes, that's the boundary of that southern portion of their current facility in the city of Franklin.
Okay, and so is there a proposed road? Like, I'm seeing
So,
that home there,
Right.
that's got a postage stamp sort of flag.
right, so they want to leave the home for visitors. The company is out of Italy, so they want to leave that for visitors. I'm assuming that the driveway will come down this way and then access through here.
Okay, so there,
We've had that on the previous slide.
Yeah. I don't know to what or how accurate this rendering is, but you can see here's the house, there's the existing driveway, and here's what they proposed. Now, I can't really make out the distance, but somewhere on this side, they need the 50-foot buffer. And then on this side, obviously, they'll need the buffer type B, which is 20 feet.
and so, what is the offset between the western property line and the proposed construction of the road? Or do we know that yet?
That'd have to be the applicant, because once again, this is just a concept plan. The one on the far right in red was the very first one. They came up with this one, and I haven't been advised of any other updates, and I can't really determine the distance because it's so small.
But code requires the 50-foot buffer and the 10-foot, the 50-foot and the 10 feet.
So that's
That's
50
correct.
feet.
It has to be a minimum.
The
Minimum
buffer
50
has
feet.
to be, yeah, but I'm certain that they're not gonna build, I don't know, the road right on top of the buffer.
Okay.
Very good. We'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Dustin Bailey with Miller Valentine Construction, representing Modulo or Mogul Tech. We do plan on the 50-foot buffer. I mean, the previous slide that was up there is an offset of 50 feet from the western property line to the west edge of the proposed drive. And the 10-foot high buffer height is, you know, we're intending on conforming to all of those requirements, so.
You're okay with mounding through there?
Yeah, it will be a combination of mounding and the 6-foot fence. So whether it's a 4 or 6-foot mound plus a 6-foot fence on top, that is the intent. You know, mounding, I mean, we can put a 10-foot mound up there, we could put a, you know, 6-foot, I think right now our plans would have a 6-foot mound.
I'm a big fan of mounds.
Six-foot mound with a 6-foot fence on top to go 12 feet total, not the 10 feet.
And so on there, you're getting a second entrance off Pennyroyal to the property. Because there's a road on there to the house that you're keeping.
Let's see here. Whoops. Yes, the house and the drive for that house would, the intent is that would remain untouched.
So why aren't you planting that road, why aren't you widening that road to the house and using that?
Keeping that independent, without, I mean, we're going off of the direction of the client, and they wanted that house with the drive to be left untouched, separate, so that when their folks from Italy come in, they're not, you know, coming down the drive for the associates.
So how many feet is it from the proposed road to their house?
I don't know that answer. I can certainly
look that up when I get in front of my computer.
I guess I can appreciate maintaining the road and the grounds there around the house, but I certainly wouldn't want the access road to be closer to the existing residents there than it is to the house that they've purchased on the land.
Okay.
And what is the purpose of this road being 32 feet wide? And the angst the board is obviously having is the county engineer's permit says that trucks can use this, which is indicative of why it might have to be 30. If it's only a driveway, why is it 32
It's
feet wide?
it's two lane access, you know, with some maneuverability for trucks. And that the truck traffic isn't intended to be heavy, shouldn't be their primary, it's not intended to be their primary, in and ingress and egress from the property.
So it's not just for the employee's use, it's for something more than that.
Correct.
So it's anybody coming from the north.
I'm not sure what
Going
their,
to the
their truck traffic, I don't know which direction it primarily comes from or goes to.
But employees could use this as well.
The original intent is for the employees to be able to access to the north without having to go south to go north.
And could you, access the property for employees? Could you build a road for employees for car travel without the, change in the zoning?
No, at least according to
No, they
Franklin
can't.
Township, that's not allowed. I mean, that was our original, that's what we originally came in, to just get a driveway, not go through rezoning, and we were told that we can't have a drive through B2 to an I1 use.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, because clearly that would be, if I lived right there, that'd be a frustration of, is there gonna be heavy truck traffic right in my backyard, till from when to when? That would be, even, the mound would make it better, but obviously the best case is if it's truly for employees, then shouldn't we maybe build the road for vehicle traffic, not truck traffic?
Trucks are the secondary reason. I mean, it primarily is the employees, but they also want the ability, if needed, to be able to have trucks access. I mean, they have one ingress right now to their property, and if there were ever an accident or an issue, their operation shut down. Not that, I don't know that that's ever happened, but the possibility is there, even for fire apparatus.
Okay. Appreciate it, thank you.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Sure someone want to speak on this matter?
Go ahead.
Morning.
My name is Adrienne McKinney. This here, this too, is our property here, and it may look like there's enough room, there's not enough room there. That's why I said concrete wall. Also, I don't feel like their plan is safe, because I play chicken to get off of Bruce Road, or Bruce Drive, every day, okay? Cars coming this way, they're speeding over that hill. I could look right, I could look left, and there's nothing there. I make my turn, I look in my rearview mirror, there's a car on my tail end. Somebody's gonna get killed with this configuration. They need to move. Sorry, because I'm upset too.
You're okay.
My dad owns a truck company. I know the business of trucks. A truck going through my backyard when I'm trying to rest on our patio, they don't have that. That's what they want to give us. I don't like it. this here needs to be moved out there. I'm sorry if their dignitaries would be inconvenienced, that's not my problem, okay? But it needs to be moved because this configuration is gonna get somebody killed. Also, my issue is, when that neighborhood was constructed, I am so sorry.
No, you're fine.
When that neighborhood was constructed, apparently on that back half of us, there was a ditchway. And apparently at some point in time it was filled in. So a lot of the yards flood. My husband and I have been able to get ours under control, but our neighbors looks like a pond. So there is an issue with water, okay? The first plans that I looked at were not these, but there's an elevation on that road. And that elevation little tick thing that they had on the previous one, it would run water into our properties, okay? All we're asking is that they control the water, don't damage our property, don't take away our ability to rest when we get home. We don't want to see trucks in our backyard. We don't want to hear trucks, we don't want the smoke from them, the light pollution, because I'm pretty sure they're gonna put some lights up, okay? Because that area is dark back there. We like to sit out there in the dark sometimes. It's dark. They're gonna need lights. So it's like they didn't care anything about us when they came up with this. But again, another thing, like I said before, that configuration is gonna get somebody killed. So,
Because essentially you're saying that even though it comes out on Pennyroyal, the Bruce intersection, and even the, Williams Drive intersection's right there together?
well, Williams, yeah, so Williams, Bruce, you know how Bruce comes off, and then a little ways, there's right, just not too far down, there's Williams. But where they wanna put that, somebody is going to get hurt. Because I almost get hurt in T-bone coming off of
Cause it's
Bruce.
going downhill.
It's going down, so by
Yeah.
the time we make our turn, we look in our rearview mirror, there's a car there already. And those cars are speeding up that hill. I noticed that there's a flashing 35, but it needs to be turned around and put in the other direction. Cars are speeding up that hill. Me and my husband watched a dump truck, and it looked like it was going 70 miles an hour down that road. And it is curvy. There's not gonna be enough reaction time to stop. They need to move the front of that road. It's too much. And we're seeing the concrete barrier, we're trying to be, we know their job is to make money, okay, and for their people and everything else, and that's fine, I don't have an issue with that. But when I come home, I wanna rest. I don't wanna see their trucks in my backyard. That's all we're asking. So, those things, the flooding, the light, the noise, and we don't wanna see them. And the safety issue, we don't wanna get killed either. So, that's my gripe, sorry.
No, sorry, that's
You
fine.
don't have to be sorry.
Ray, this will not come back before any public body, site plan review or anything, that this will be the final decision?
That is correct, because all they're asking for is a driveway.
Yeah, and you're not deciding the placement of that. He's indicating that it's just a concept plan of where they suggest it would go. So nobody else is gonna look at this. The engineers already looked at it and said it meets the access management regulations. And there's no way for you to put conditions on this, okay?
So, you just indulge me for just a minute. So since it's contiguous to the city of Franklin, would the city of Franklin be able to annex that property?
They could.
And then, is there they do their own zoning?
Yes.
And you probably don't know off the top of your head, or maybe you do. Does their zoning have the 50-foot and 10-foot requirement? You don't know.
I don't know, maybe planning, do you guys know, they're shaking their heads no, so we don't know the answer to that.
So this isn't like a PUD where we can actually have
That's correct.
input. The only question before us is a rezone from one thing to another, and then once it's rezoned, then they have an allowable use, and they're representing to us, the only thing they wanna do is put in a driveway.
Right, but we don't have any restriction to that effect.
So it's almost an all or nothing, that either we
With the
accept.
50-foot and the 10-foot.
Yeah, and then
Requirement.
those are zoning requirements. They would have to comply comply, and what Ray's testimony was that they can, as long as they comply with the buffer type D, and he explained what those are on the side of this person who just presented, you know, they would have to meet that. But they can meet it with whatever materials our zoning code allows.
Yeah, I guess what I was curious about, since the city of Franklin is supporting this change, that if we were to deny it, and then the property was annexed into the city, which code is more, for the lack of a better word, where there's more condition placed on it?
That's very possible, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, my name's William Brown. End of that road where it comes into Penny Royal, my property is right there. 2 roads already there, that'll be a third one.
They're this house.
There'll be a third road. We've had, my property has had 5, 6, 7 car accidents where people got hurt, where my neighbor went in from my property into there. It's gonna cause more, and the speed limit's 35, there's nobody go 35. It's 45, 50, 55, or whatever they can go. And it's gonna get worse if you have tractor and trailers. We've got enough tractor and trailers going through there now, and they're gonna add more. It's not gonna be safe. It's gonna be very unsafe.
Yeah, they had pillars that were in front of their house, right on the edge of their driveway. One of the pillars have been knocked down from a car accident because it's kind of an S curve in a way right there. And people with going 45, or if they're drunk or texting, they're not gonna be able to take that curve at the speeds that they're trying, and they knocked it down and hit it. They, across the street, they've had multiple people take out the telephone poles. The neighbors on their, if you're facing the property on their right, have had a drunk driver hit and total one of their cars in their driveway because they went from their property over their hump and right directly into their car. And then with the way that the 2 roads that are Bruce and what was the other one?
Williams.
They're kind of offset a little bit, so you kind of, to go across the street, you kind of have to go like a little diagonal to get to it. So with those, and then having that road come right next to that road, just, it won't be safe to try to get across those roads and trying to get off either of those roads. So it's a big accident waiting to happen with how many accidents are already there.
They've taken out telephone pole across the street, that side of the street, at least 6, 7 times since I've been there. My property, they've taken that telephone pole out, driving up and down through there. And not only that, they took out my mailbox pillar, went through my property, hit my neighbor's truck, which is a long ways away from where it's at. And what they're talking about doing is not gonna be safe.
All right, here's my thought on this. I appreciate y'all coming, and I feel the same way that we've got conflicting things a little bit, that we try to support our businesses. We appreciate they're a good employer, you know, people need jobs, that we appreciate them choosing Warren County, so we try to work with our employers, we do. However, they're asking us to do something, and once we do this, then they can kind of do what they want on, as our prosecutor just said, all they're doing is asking us to rezone this property, and then they can do whatever the heck they want with it. So we're in what Commissioner Jones is alluding to. We're also with a new variable, which is the city of Franklin.
Right.
And this is inside the city of Franklin. All they have to do is something called an annexation, and take this property, move it over to Franklin, and then Franklin might not care what you have to say at all.
Right.
So if we say no, then all of a sudden Franklin's just gonna say yes, I have a feeling. And then they might not even have as good of a setback and a mounding requirement that we do, and it could potentially be a worse outcome for you. So that's where if we say no, oh no, forget it, then they still have options, is what I'm saying. So we're trying to weigh that, but I agree with you, just from a layman's point of view, looking at the configuration of why in the world we would allow, especially you guys had to sit through that long access management stuff, sorry about that, where the traffic flow is a big deal in this county.
Right.
And where driveways come out. I honestly am shocked that the engineer would allow a driveway to come out, because that's what surprises me. There are 3 roads converging and they're not aligned, and now you're gonna have another major artery there. So I think we continue this and have the engineer's office come and have them address that concern that we have of the configuration. We're not saying, no, you can't have your driveway, but it is a legitimate question, in my opinion, of the configuration of having it come out immediately behind, there is the factor immediately behind these folks' houses, but then where it comes out on Pennyroyal.
Right.
I think that is a safety concern when you have 3 roads that are, I'm looking at it on my map right now, and it's like, man, that's.
Has the township opined on this? Do they have a position on
Yeah,
this?
I put it in the summary that it was an email from Administrator Cordray, about that they are in support of it, and it may be based off of the discussion point that you had, that they don't want to lose territory. I don't know that for a fact, but it was a very quick email that said that they were in support of this. But I can definitely, if you want to continue it again, I can definitely get the engineer's office in here.
Yeah, and here's our commitment to you, the residents. I have a feeling this is gonna happen, but we hear you relative to the consideration, and hear us that we're gonna require them to do a substantial mound and then would you guys rather have a fence or pine trees on top of it?
My property
You don't
is
care.
on the other side.
Right, so you'd rather have a privacy fence on top of a mound?
The problem with the mound is they can control flooding. We already get,
Yeah.
every time it rains really hard.
Flooding.
Yeah,
my
my
neighbor's yard is
sister,
like a pond.
my sister lives
It's on
close
top
to
of
them on
septic
the other
system
side of
and
the road.
everything.
So you're saying if we build a mound through there, if they build a
It's
mound
gonna
through
make it
there, it's
worse.
just gonna make it worse, potentially?
So,
There used to be a ditchway there, but the previous owner,
Right.
I was told, it filled it up. That would
Bruce,
keep
is
the water
half
from
of that
running.
roadway in Montgomery County, is that through that part of Pennyroyal, is that the county line between Montgomery and Warren County?
I think it goes further up Clear Creek, Franklin. It's actually up there a little bit more.
Yeah,
I don't-
it's up-
Maybe by a half a mile or so, but it's close, but Pennyroyal is not the county line there.
Right.
And the reason I asked that question is because, with that interchange at I-75 and the Austin Landing build out there, it's close, it's gotta be the last roadway between those 2 counties at the very least. And, it just seems to me that on the connectivity front, that's gonna continue to be, developed. There's gonna be continued requests on property there to handle the traffic coming from from that interchange. And there's a lot of land there that's not yet developed on the south side of Austin Boulevard.
Well, I would say maybe we'd need zoning or RPC to help out, but there have been RPC cases. So Wood Road is what comes out of Montgomery County that turns to Clear Creek, Franklin,
Yeah.
where the
Yeah.
border is.
Mm-hmm.
We have had zoning cases where businesses have started to kind of pop up there in Clear Creek, Franklin, if I'm not mistaken, probably benefiting from the Austin interchange.
Mm-hmm.
So where I'm hearing you're going is that when we talk about thoroughfare plans, is that is going to be an increased,
Yes.
long-term probably demand.
Yes.
And we need to look at it holistically. I don't know what the answer is, but that's,
Because once it's zoned this way, in 20 years, there are other things that they can build on that property. It's not we're not approving a driveway, we're approving the zoning change, which means an expansion could go there.
They had a slide, I think, that showed all the uses.
Yeah, so do we have any ability to put this driveway on the current?
That's what they should do, if they're
On the
gonna do
current
it.
The other
zoning?
thing I could think of is like putting it on the other side of the property, on the other side of the house,
Yeah.
so that way they could still have that.
I just don't think we get to
driveway.
decide that, is
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
hearing the prosecutor say, is that
Yeah.
it's either up or down on the zoning, and the zoning requires a 50-foot buffer and a 10-foot screen.
The other question I have is like, are they going to expand the main road so that way if trucks do go through there, that they're not gonna end up in ditches and,
They're not
Following on
expanding
it.
the main road.
Yeah, Penny Royal,
cause it's a
my property
small road.
right there is
I live right on
where
Penny
it
Royal,
comes
I
out.
know exactly where you
Okay.
are, I
It's
know
They
this
don't
area
even
well.
take care, it's that deep
Yeah, it is.
from the road
On the
top
road.
to down on my property, then you got the mound. They don't fix it, they throw gravel in it, and the trucks and cars and everything are running off the road constantly, throwing that gravel into my yard.
All right, well, thank you, yeah, we get it, and, yeah, we hear you. Do we think we have any leeway of a variance with just a driveway? Yeah, my preference would be not change zoning, but grant them a driveway?
I think that would, I mean, Ray, I mean, that was
Ray,
the
do we
original
have any-
question relative to a driveway going to an I guess the question would be is, the industrial zoning is technically in Franklin, so is that's a little bit of gray area, is we can't do a road without a zoning change because it's going to industrial?
Well, no, because it's a B2, it is zone business. Why can we not have a driveway in a B2 zone?
Because B2 doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
And you can't use a property to access a different zoning classification. And here specifically, since the B2 doesn't allow it. And no, that would be a use variance. That would not work. Now, I don't know if if a conditional use would work on a part of it. I haven't given that any thought.
Right, because once it's rezoned to I-1, they put the driveway in. If they want to do anything other than the driveway, they're gonna have to come back in front of you either for a site plan or a conditional use. Everything in that area.
Yeah, but it's allowed. I mean, essentially, yeah, there's a
It
review.
limits on why we could oppose it.
Yeah, Commissioner Young is trying to arrive at a solution where we could have some decision-making authority with conditions. That's the question.
And so, and you're saying maybe,
Maybe,
probably not, but a maybe. Let's give that some thought. So, yeah, to you folks, I think we've been transparent, you know, that's the situation. A good business wants a driveway, we understand that. You could tell your client that if the driveway proposed was a little more further away from the houses and tied into the existing driveway, even if it's split off from the residential one, I think you'd have approval today. Otherwise, and maybe you can convey that to your client, that could it, because we are concerned with the configuration of that, and obviously there's an existing driveway
Yeah.
on the road. We would like to see that tie into that location, and even if, yeah, we have a separate drive right to the house, it kind of veers off, but then that swings around that house into the employee lot. I think you would have an approval there, and that, I hear what you're saying on the mounding, and that makes sense, that we would just have a combination of a fence and some pine trees, combination thereof, as opposed to a mound, which would potentially contribute to more flooding. Yeah, and we'll do we'll do a continuation of this, have the engineer back, but yeah, you can tell your client we want to accommodate them, but our preference would be to use the existing driveway. If not, that's a higher reach, and for the residents, we hear you, we're gonna try to get it moved, and they're definitely gonna have to do mounding, and we hear you loud and clear on the configuration.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Do we need a motion to continue?
Yeah. Sure.
I move that we continue the public hearing in progress to February 4th at 9:30.
And yes. Very good. This is continued.
Want a roll call vote on that, Bruce?
Sure. Sure.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Very good.
Bruce, do you still need the executive?
We do, and I have course of counsel available by phone.
Okay.
All right. Anything else to come before us? We have executive session. Hearing none. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
I move that we head into executive session pending litigation with legal counsel present pursuant to ORC 121.22G3.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thank you.